Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Grid Talk podcast here on the Motorsport Magpie channel. And we're here for the Miami review. We got some breaking news first, as I said. It's not clickbait. I haven't put clickbait in. It is actually some breaking news that Oliver Oakes is now to resign as team principal at Alpine, and that role will be taken over by Flavio Briatore, which we'll get more into at the start of the show. But as always, we have two people to join us, and as always, it's Wadget and Paul. Hello, lads.
Hello.
Hi, all you happy
How are
people.
we? Are we all
Now,
good?
we do have to, me and Wadget will apologise for the less than enthusiastic Miami preview, but we didn't actually expect there to be much to talk about. Miami's not really the exciting race it normally is, but we've got plenty to talk about today, so we'll get straight into it. Paul, your view on this Ollie Oakes disappearing from Alpine?
Well, I mean, I think I'd say it's a surprise, but I'm not even sure it is really a surprise. They're just... Alpine, again, just stumble, don't they, from crisis to crisis. They get rid of one guy, they bring in another guy, and they say it's all gone stable and we're fixed, and then they get rid of that guy, and then they bring in another guy, and they say it's all fixed, it's all stable, and it's not. And the bottom line is that, really, if you want to break all of this down and be really straight about it, which, by the way, is what Oliver Oakes is. He's a straight shooter. This is Renault. This is a power play inside Alpine. It's Renault saying, we don't really want to spend any money on F1. We haven't wanted to spend money on F1 for about 3 years. And you had a 5-year plan. And the plan was, deliver us podiums by year 3, winning by year 4, championship challenge by year 5. And that's plainly not going to work. It's plainly not going to happen. But I think it's almost more than that. I think this is the internal power play. Briatore in there, and Oliver Oakes all fighting over the same piece of the pie, trying to manage the same thing, was never going to work, was it? Let's be honest. And so what's happened now, I think, is you've had... And I'm sure this will be confirmed today or tomorrow or in the next couple of days, so this isn't breaking news anyway, but I'm sure the Doohan issue has probably brought all of this to a head. It's not the sole reason for it, but it's part of what's happened. Doohan's basically going to get fired. Colapinto's going to come in. Alpine get $50 million in cash as a reward for taking on Colapinto from all the Argentinian sponsors. That was something that wouldn't have happened if he wasn't in the car by the start of the second quarter of the season. So that's where we're at right now. We've had a quarter. So Doohan goes through no real fault of his own. He hasn't been great, but he shouldn't have been fired already. Oakes says, well, that's my job. I hire Rafai. That's my job as the guy that runs the team. Briatore says, not my problem. Go and talk to Renault. Because in the background, Renault have hired Briatore as the fish, as the piranha, to go through the team, make cost cutting, get rid of people that he doesn't like, get rid of the deadwood, save Renault a ton of money. They've ditched the engine stuff, so they save a fuck ton of money from the engine builds and all the rest of it. Yeah, they're paying for Mercedes, but trust me, it's a darn sight cheaper than building all their own stuff from next year. Next up is, well, let's find out where we get the money from. If you're not, because Renault are saying, well, we're not giving you the money. So if we don't give you the money, where's it coming from? Because you're not going to make it from performance upgrades, which you promised us you would do, and you're not going to get it from more sponsorship because you can't finish in the top 6. So where's the money coming from? So Briatore says, aha, I've seen a golden goose on the grid, and his name is Franco Colapinto, and he's actually quite good, which is awesome, because now I can go and get him, and he'll be a better replacement from the driver we've already signed, and he comes with $50 million to plug the gaps that we've got in our budget. Fantastic. So he goes off and does that, tells Renault that that's what needs to happen. Renault say, yeah, sounds about right, we don't want to spend 50 million quid, so yeah, go do that. Briatore gets rid of Doohan, brings Colapinto in, that's all happened in the background, we don't know about it publicly yet, but it's all going on, trust me. Oak says, well, fuck you, Briatore, I run this fucking company, who the fuck are you? And he says, not my problem, mate. I've been hired by Renault to save money, I've saved money. Not my problem. Oak says, well, okay, Renault, am I the boss or not the boss? And they say, well, you are, but this decision is Briatore's. And he says, well, I can't manage like that, can I? I can't manage a company like that, so fuck it, I'm off. That's the 3-minute version, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the 3-minute version. It could, I mean, the story...
And I tried to be as quick as I could, honestly.
The story around Enstone-based teams, Renault dipping in and out more times than you dip your toe into the sea to try and get in there. It happens all the time. We've been expecting it from Alpine to sort of pull completely out.
Yeah,
they're not seeming to do that just now.
Well, I think that's the point, though, David. I think Renault have said, look, you can go on for as long as you'd like, as long as you can self-fund. and our money is going to keep going down and down and down in terms of what we're going to give you to run. And if you can find the gap in the money, carry on. If you can't, we'll sell the team.
Yeah, the rest of my camera will suddenly appear back in a minute. Honest. There we go. And Wajid, obviously, Flavio Briatore, not the flavour of the month with most people in the F1 paddock. If we remember,
He's an arsehole. He's an arsehole.
He did get
He's a piranha.
Outright ban.
He's a piranha.
If he did get an outright ban for fixing the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix, yes, I did mention a controversy that's not the 2021. Oh, damn, I've said it. Anyway.
It's fine. No, it's fine. Zach Brown covered that on the Sky Sports coverage during the race anyway. So
what, with his new water bowl?
Yeah. Wajid, where can you see this going now with Alpine? Is it, we're pretty certain Colapinto will be in, but we also know that they actually tested Colapinto and Aaron together, and Aaron was quicker.
This team hasn't been relevant since 2005. to be
Six.
Perfect.
Six.
Oh, sorry, 6. Yeah.
Or 8, depending if you like controversy.
Because it was Kimi that won the 2007. So my apologies. This team hasn't been relevant. I don't care. I don't understand why Flavio Briatore has anything to do with an F1 team. So when what's his name? Donald Sterling, the old Clippers owner, was linked to racial controversy, and they said, you are no longer allowed to own a team because you are banned from the NBA. Guess what? He's never been near the NBA since. Only in F1 can you be banned from the sport, but yet you can still have ties and links to the team and pretty much like have something to do with the ownership of the team, but you're still banned from the sport. Only in F1 does a ban not really mean a ban, depending on who you are and what your name is and how long you've been in and how relevant you are to the sport. Yeah. At the end of the day, Flavio Briatore is a parasite. He's a parasite. He's a scumbag, and I don't wish anything for him or anything about the team whilst Flavio's around. And there's already spent, for my opinion, there's already too long on this topic and this man, who's in a total elite scumbag. And F1, the FIA, Liberty, Salman, one of you, like, you guys seem to jump out whenever something suits you. This lifetime ban, actually enforce it, get him out of F1, get him as far away from F1 as much as possible, because for all this talk of corruption and in other sports and things like that, I still think F1 is the seediest, shadiest, handshake agreement sport in the world. Just is not shown on for the Drive to Survive fanboys and the TikTok fanboys. Those who are fans of the sport.
I suppose it's like Paul said, it's a piranha club.
I think he's a scumbag. I'm not because piranha's nice, but he's a scumbag. He's an elite scumbag.
I haven't seen anybody ever say a piranha's nice,
But I think Piranha's too gentle for him. I just think he's a total and utter scumbag.
Let's say, obviously, Colapinto does come in this week. Do we all believe that Colapinto will see the end of the season?
Yes.
Yeah, because of the money.
Purposes,
yeah. I think you have to disassociate this deal with anything other than money, and that's not to do a disservice or be rude about Franco Colapinto's ability or actually malign Jack Doohan's for that matter. I think if you look back at their careers, I think you would say Doohan's had the better career of the two in the junior formula. He had more potential than Franco, but Franco did a decent job in a few races last year for Williams. At least he showed he can be quicker than Doohan, I guess, but more erratic. Don't forget, he clocked up more damage on that Williams in the back end of last year than Logan Sargent did in the previous 18 months, which is saying quite a lot, really. So we know that Alpine could end up with some heavy bills, and they were the team that had the least amount of bills last year, by the way. So this could backfire on them, but I guess you weigh 3 or 4 million quid's worth of damage to your car against $50 million coming in. And if they've said that basically they're not going to pay the money unless he gets 3/4 of the season, well, then I guess he's in for the rest of the season then, isn't he? Otherwise, Alpine will probably forfeit some of that money, and I don't think they want to do that because, as I said, Renault aren't going to bail them out anymore. This team has to survive on its own now, or Renault will sell it.
Very true. We'll move on, obviously, because that was breaking news that came into us literally 3 minutes before we went live. So first of all, from the weekend, we do have to pass on our congratulations and our best wishes to Kelly Piquet and Max Verstappen for their birth of their daughter Lily.
Yep. Congratulations to the 2046 world champion Formula One.
There we go. Nice of them.
Yeah.
Nice.
First picture of the 2046 F1 world champion there.
Yeah, I know a lot of people say it's photoshopped, but yes, he was hiding behind the curtain.
I heard he helped. I heard he actually took the doctor out and delivered the baby himself.
Yeah, he was the one which cut the cord because
he's basically becoming the Kim Jong Il of F1, isn't he? He probably shot a round of 9 on a 9-hole golf course, right?
Yeah, I've heard that one. I've also heard that he actually asked Danny Kvyat to come and help with the birth as well. So I mean,
reasonable.
Keeping the family together. Sorry. Anyway. Congratulations to Max and Kelly.
I mean, those two kids, seriously, have got some pretty wicked racing genes, haven't they?
Yeah.
I mean, the two kids that Kelly Piquet's given birth to, she's given birth to a child with Kvyat and Piquet genes and one with Verstappen and Piquet genes. That's pretty good, really. 2 kids with like 11 world championships between them or something. That's insane.
That's
two kids fueled by 90% worth of racism.
Well, yes. It could be interesting if they're not actually brother and sister.
No, they're half brother. They're half brother and half sister. Yeah,
they're half sisters.
But they could end up fighting against each other, couldn't they? Later on in life, in actual racing.
Wait, no, hang on. There's half sisters, aren't there? Because it's 2 girls she has.
Oh, it's 2 girls. Yeah. So they're half sisters. Yeah.
Yes, but it's a modern world, Wadget.
Fine. They're half cucumbers.
Yeah. Half fighter girls.
How many more people are gonna piss off?
Yeah.
Oh,
it is.
If you identify as a cucumber, I apologise on behalf of Wadget right now.
I mean, I normally have a right go of Max, but it is good that he managed to get from there to Miami in that amount of time. I mean, that's something I don't think any of us could manage to do. When we first had a kid in the world, it was sleep. But no, apparently, let's go do a sprint weekend.
Yeah. And he's. I mean, I remember the question he was asked over the weekend was that, how are you able to just turn up and drive like it's a normal weekend when you've just had a kid? And he said, it's my job. That's what I do. Just very. He said you have to stay unemotive about it, and I thought that was a really interesting insight to the way that he approaches a weekend, it's been pretty much how he's been since he's been in Formula One, hasn't it? And I don't think a child really makes any difference to the way that he approaches the weekend. I thought that was quite refreshing, really. A lot of people slated him for that because they were like, "Oh, he's such a robot. He can't even bother to love his kid." That's not what he said. He obviously loves his kid. It's the way that it's just unconditional love for any child that you have. But he also understands how to decompartmentalise that and then go racing. I just thought it was a really good insight into the way he thinks.
It is a really good insight, and as long as he doesn't think about that while he's going through a petrol station on the way home from the kart circuit, we'll be fine. That's the main thing. Yeah, okay, we're not getting FIA passes.
We were never getting FIA passes.
This weekend, there was a record set for the first time ever. Does anybody know what that was?
No, because it's a fake record, because it doesn't really exist. Because if you go and look up how many pole positions a driver has, it says against Kimi Antonelli, 0! Fucking 0! Because he doesn't have an official pole position where he sat on the pole for a Grand Prix! So he can't, therefore, set a record as the youngest ever pole sitter. Load of trash built up by Sky News.
I was just going to say a semi-entertaining
That wasn't the record.
I was just going to say, as you said, the entertaining Miami Grand
I
Prix.
thought I'd just let you do that first because I knew that was coming.
Hey, I've got to rant about something this week. Driver of the day actually made fucking sense for a change.
Well,
I don't know who driver
we'll
of the day was.
it
Oscar.
came up an hour and a half after a race.
All right, yeah.
Um,
I stopped paying
No,
attention.
the record that was set was the first team ever to get a full amount of points from a sprint weekend.
Oh, I didn't know that.
McLaren scoring
Interesting.
58 of 58 points. I think
Very
the
good.
closest before was Imola 1 year for Red Bull,
Red Bull.
being 2 points short.
Right.
So, and that's when
Cool.
the fastest lap all brought in as well.
Yeah, I was going to say they would have had the extra points for fastest laps too.
Yeah, so McLaren utterly dominating the weekend, apart
Yeah.
from qualifying.
Yeah.
Can't seem to do one lap, but they can do 58.
Yeah.
Or 57, or however long the race was. I can't quite remember. Anyway, this weekend, Wajid, Piastri not seeming to have the overall pace advantage on Lando, but then also having just enough to be able to be in the right place at the
But,
right time.
he-
Maybe
but
not in the sprint.
But he didn't. But he didn't have the pace advantage in Jeddah either. Like this is the shit I held up against Lando last year, and it's coming to fruition this year, which makes me even more pissed off that I put Oscar and Lando in the opposing
You're right,
positions
yeah.
in our prediction because I'd been saying so much about Lando when you guys had been defending him. So when you be so.
Well, at least none of you put Piastri down in 6th place. Oh, yeah, you did, Budget. 6th place, yeah.
Who's currently winning? Who's currently winning the predictions? Who's currently winning the predictions?
Sorry, who predicted the world champion would be Oscar Piastri of the three of us? Who was that?
You did it because you were annoyed at what Wajid was saying that day.
That's the
mate.
only
Sorry,
reason.
I heard I did.
No,
was
no,
that
no,
right?
no, no.
I was the one that picked Oscar Piastri as world champion.
Paul, where's my thank? Paul, you should be thanking me. Say,
Should I?
thank you. Yeah, you should. Because it was.
How's your pick doing? It's Lewis Hamilton, right, for world champion? How's that going?
There's still time.
Quarter of the season gone. This is why I've brought up predictions.
how many-
Quarter of the
So,
season.
how's that one single point you've had from all those race predictions you've had all season?
I think we'll see today that I've picked up some more points this weekend. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Well, the
No,
only way is
that's
the only
Checky
the only
even
way is
had one. Yes, he has.
the only way.
I've
No.
doubled my score, I'll have you know.
It's not. Totally throw.
It's not saying much, is it, really?
The reason Oscar hasn't been quick, Oscar has been ruthless, and you can sort of see that with the way when he goes wheel to wheel, Max. When he goes wheel to even his wheel to wheel racecraft compared to Lando, he's more meticulous, he's more ruthless, he's more cerebral about it. He sees where Max is gonna. He knows what Max's wheel to wheel racing is like. Everyone knows what Max's wheel to wheel racing is like,
does, yeah.
right? But this is the first time I've seen someone sort of in Max's head since Lewis, where he knows he can't psych Oscar. He tried doing that in Jeddah, it didn't work. He tried overstepping the mark again in Miami with some of the late braking he was doing. Again, it didn't work. And once Oscar got past, off he went. Now, Lando, when your team boss is coming out and saying, yeah, you don't have to go wheel to wheel in turn two. If you let your foot off the gas, yes, racing drive, all that. But if you let your foot off the gas slightly, be slightly more cerebral, you probably get him down in the long run to I believe 10, 11, the fake swimming pool ocean area. But he didn't. He's kept his foot in. He's then slid down 4 places. He made all the work up because Oscar was behind Max, and then he's made a total meal of trying to overtake Max. Like, we saw it in Jeddah with Lewis, and we saw it again with Max. There is something about Lando's wheel-to-wheel racecraft against people that have nothing to lose or are more ruthless, that he just does not have it about him. And it feels like week after week, there is a new Lando Norris mistake that we are here talking about. Oscar is 16 points clear, I believe, in the world championship, and honestly, Lando should be grateful Oscar shit the bucket in Australia, shit the bucket the way he did in Australia, because that gap could be so much more bigger, so much bigger at this moment in time. Oscar Piastri is on a ruthless march to this world title at this moment in time, and if it carries on the way it does, I don't want anyone protecting Lando Norris at the end of this season when I get to say what I have to say if the world title keeps on going as it does. But I'll pass the floor back to either you, David, or you, Paul.
Yeah, Paul, obviously we're turning around and, we can all see from Oscar's way he is with Max, he's just that little bit more aggressive. He's going, if that's the game you're going to play, I will play the same game. Whereas Lando does sort of kind of be a bit lighter with most people anyway, in terms of his driving style and his overtaking. Was he right to go for that in turn 2? And do you think Max did it on... I mean, he had that little rear end slide, which sort of probably saved him from a penalty.
I don't think Max did it on purpose. I don't think he necessarily had the chance to do it on purpose the way that it worked. And you're right, he had a slide, so I don't think it was necessarily on purpose. I think in the interviews that I watched afterwards, Lando basically said that he had to back out of that move, or he would have ended up in the wall, and it would have been a big one. I just feel like at this point that Max is living rent-free in Lando's head. And actually, it's almost the opposite with Oscar. Like, Oscar is so calm. And I love the fact that, Wajid used the phrase cerebral, because that's exactly how you describe... Piastri is the closest reincarnation of Alain Prost that we have in Formula 1 right now, if you want to go back that far. He's calm, he's cool, he's collected, he's methodical, he's meticulous, even to the point where if you watch the overtakes, and obviously I can't show you this on screen right now, but go back and watch the overtake, right, on Max, because it's really clever. It's really simple racecraft, and if you've ever been in iRacing or any other simulator, you'll have learnt this yourself, I'm sure. And this is, you give the car on the inside the least amount of entry room, okay? So in other words, when you come up to a corner, and the greatest way of taking an apex is to swing out as far wide as you can onto the exits, the edges of the track, and then swing across to the corner and clip it on the midpoint of the corner. That's the basics of apex cornering, right? Imagine now you're the car on the inside of two cars going down a straight, and you're level pegging, right? Which Lando was several times with Max, and Oscar was with Max when he overtook him. But Max has taken the inside line because he knows that if he takes the inside line and he takes it well, he protects the lead, he stays in front. Oscar also knows this, so instead of moving back to the outside of the track where he can apex properly, what does he do? He stayed in the middle of the track, right? Which is great. And so Max is sat there on the inside going, fuck, is he going to move? Is he going to move back? Well, fuck, if he doesn't move back, I'm going to run out of room. I can't get round the corner if you don't move. Fuck! And he can't do it. He can't move him over. He can't physically move him out of the way, or they have an accident. So Max is now stuck, waiting for Oscar to give him room, which he never comes, and that's why he runs off the track. Oscar, likewise, knows that he's given him so little room, he's not going to make the corner at the speed he's going. So he backs off, brakes earlier, waits for him to run on, and then undertakes him. It's like... It looked really cool, but if you examine it, it's so clever the way that Oscar set that up. Because he set Max up to fail. Now, with that information in hand, and Will Joseph sat on the wall as a very experienced race engineer, and having seen that, what does he tell Lando on the radio when Lando comes up to do the same thing? He says, Max is going to take the inside, take him around the outside. No, Will, you've missed the point. That's not what happened. So what does Lando do for 3 laps in a row? He does the whole squeeze Max to the inside, and then watch him at the end of the straight. Lando goes that way to take the apex turn in, which then Max says, oh, thanks very much, I've got a much better arc, goes all the way over the other side, and then takes the turn, which is how he spends 3 laps trying to get round him. So 2 things. One is technically, I don't think Lando got the right information, so that's on the team. Secondly, he should be driving the same way. He should be thinking the same things if he wants that place. And thirdly, Max is living rent-free in his fucking head. And he needs to get over this. Otherwise, it's not going to change. This is going to happen time and time again.
Well, Paul, I don't even think it's Max. I think Charles is living rent free in his head. I think Lewis. I think if he comes,
but not to the same degree. I mean, Lewis fucked with him in Jeddah, right?
No. As in, if they were going like with Max, he's going wheel to wheel because they're at the same level compared to other cars. If Charles and George and Lewis all had relatively competitive cars, give it 2 races, they'd all be rent free in his head because he'd be like, shit, I can't. How am I supposed to overtake? I can't overtake. There's always this. There's always that. There's always this. And the irony being, as Paul touched on, is the McLaren engineers were coaching both drivers all race about where they were quicker, how they overtake, how they did this. How do you still fuck up? And
yeah. I mean, I was looking forward to this being a really, thinking that this might be a dominant season for McLaren. I was fine with that on the understanding that we had 2 very closely matched drivers, and it could be a really fun 1988 McLaren Senna versus Prost-esque kind of battle. Not on their, not in terms of who they are, but just in terms of like the closeness of it and how interesting it could be. And actually, right now, I'm kind of worried that this is just going to be an Oscar Piastri cakewalk and he'll deserve it. Don't get me wrong. The man knows how to win championships. Let's not forget. It wasn't that long ago that he won the Formula 3 title. It wasn't that long ago that he then won the Formula 2 title. He knows how to win a championship, does Oscar Piastri, and he knows how to do it from the front. He led both of those championships very early on and then walked away into the distance. We are not talking that long ago, for crying out loud.
Yep.
Like within the last 5 years, Oscar Piastri was driving Formula 3 and Formula 2 and winning titles. When was the last time Lando fought for a title? British F3, 2017?
No,
was it British F3?
2016.
Was
it almost. Well, I think it was British.
Was it not F2 when he finished runner-up behind George?
No, well, but he wasn't really fighting for the title. He finished second, but he finished second at the last race of the season. He was third for most of the season. He wasn't really in the title race when George won it. But it was the F3. The F3 was where he was actually fighting for it with Carlin. And that's like 10 years ago. And so he doesn't know how to win a title anymore. And if he even did, right? What was F3?
European F3.
European F3, yeah. Which is effectively what FIA F3 is now. So it's a long time. And actually Oscars isn't. Oscars is like 2020, 2021. It's like, it's really recent history. He knows how to win a title. And he is so calm about it all, honestly. I mean, he's on the radio after the race, and they're like, great job, Oscar. That's 4 wins out of 5, 3 in a row. Fabulous drive. And he's like, yeah, good job, guys. Nice one.
I would also ask, is it maybe Norris's way of trying to win a championship almost? Maybe this is on purpose, like the least mistakes, but actually, because it's the least mistakes, he's actually making too many mistakes, shall we say.
Yeah, because you do get that, don't you? I mean, I remember that in the car. You when you start actually thinking about, I mustn't make a mistake. Oh, fuck, I've made another mistake. It actually happens more because you're thinking about making mistakes.
His practice run was last year. I'm not having this shit.
No, and I'm not making... No, Wajid, don't misunderstand me. I'm not making any excuses for him right now. I made those mistakes. I made those excuses for him last year because I felt they were valid. This year, he has no room. He has to fight for this championship. And I still believe he can, but he has to have a massive change in psychology and the way that he's approaching things. Because I think his innate speed and his innate talent is good enough to fight with these guys. But when it comes down to it, the small nuances that it now requires to win an F1 world title, I'm not sure he has that last 0.5%. I think Piastri does. I think Verstappen does. I think George Russell does. I think Hamilton does. Even Leclerc does. But I'm not sure that Lando does. I'm on the fence now, and I'm not making the excuses for it. I'm saying I still think he can compete in this, but he needs to change drastically. It's all very well Sky F1 defending him, saying, but he's being honest, and it's really refreshing, and he's wearing his heart on his sleeve, and all. Great, brilliant. Ignore that when you get in the fucking car and win some races, and then we can talk. Because then you can have whatever attitude you want. Because Max Verstappen has proved that you can be an arsehole and still win a world championship. Ayrton Senna proved you could be an arsehole and still win a world championship. Mika Hakkinen proved that you didn't need to be an arsehole. You could be a lovely guy and still win a world championship. So you can be whatever you want to be if you're able to challenge for a world title. Until you've won that world title, you can get criticised, and you can't stop him being criticised by saying, "Oh, but isn't he lovely? And isn't it nice that he wears his heart on his sleeve and he's honest to people, reporters?" No, it's not.
Especially this year when you categorically
Yeah.
have the quickest car.
Yes, absolutely.
Like this is probably just slightly below Max's 2022 Red Bull in terms
Yeah,
of
I don't think it's a 2020.
terms of
I think it's more like the 23 car where it's
but
it's
still
the best car, but not by
but
much.
No, but it's still dominant. But it's still
This one they were,
yeah.
but they haven't been.
But at the end of the day, everyone knows in this sport, you don't know when you're getting a car like that ever.
Yeah, exactly. He might not ever get another car
He
like
might
that.
not, especially with the regulation changes coming.
Yep.
Especially with the regulation changes coming next year. There's a reason why Nico Rosberg retired after he won his world title.
He would never have won another one.
Yeah, because he knew how much. And even then, if it wasn't for the engine blowout in Malaysia, he probably doesn't win
Yeah.
the world title either. That's the irony of it. But he knew how much it mentally took out of him. Do you know if Lando has to do all what Nico Rosberg did to win one world title, and he goes, "That's it. That's enough for me." It doesn't matter. Historically, you are a world champion.
Yeah, nobody will care.
Now, no one will give a shit. You
No.
can retire at 24,
Yeah.
25. 20,
No,
one will
nobody
give a shit.
nobody goes through the record books and goes, "Oh, look at that Jacques Villeneuve title in '97. Oh, he only won that because he had the best car." No one does that. Everyone goes, "Fuck me, Jacques Villeneuve was world champion." Yeah, of course he was. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, and Nico's was slightly more like side eye because people were like, because there was the social media thing was starting and stuff like that. But guess what? Historically, it will say 2016.
Yeah, I was going to say nobody will
F1
care.
was-
Like
yeah,
20 years
F1
from
was-
now, no one will look back in the
Yeah.
books and go, "Oh, he was really lucky to win that." Same with his dad, by the way. His dad is one of only 2 world champions that won an F1 world title by winning just a
then-
single race. A single race. He won the world title by winning 1 race in the season. Only 2 drivers have ever done that. Mike Hawthorne in 1958 and Keke Rosberg in 1982. And you could definitely say it was the luckiest world title that anyone's ever won. And that's his dad won that. And then he did the same thing. Like, that family have literally been the luckiest F1 family of all time, haven't they? But the record books won't say that. They won't say, "Oh, but Rosberg was driving a normally aspirated car and all the turbo cars were really unreliable that year because the 6 other cars should have beaten him." And they should. But the record books don't say that. The record books say 1982 world champion, Keke Rosberg. That's it.
I will say for myself, we've said we're quarter ways through the series now. 6 races down.
Amazing already.
The next 6 are quite an interesting one for me. because
Yeah,
it takes
5 in
us
Europe,
half
1 in
of
Canada.
them, and it takes us through that period of time last season where Piastri had very hot and cold races. He got second in Monaco. He was lucky to get second in Austria because of the Max and Lando crash. So
Yeah.
he would have been 4th there. He got 4th, 5th, 7th, 4th, while Lando continued getting 2nd, 4th, 2nd. Obviously, Austria didn't go to plan, and 3rd in Britain. So this is the next few circuits are the ones where Lando had the upper edge over Oscar last season. It'd be interesting to see how that arranges itself this season.
Okay,
If it becomes the same.
Yeah, but then you can also compare it to the first 6 of this season, where last season
Yeah.
I was literally
Lando had the advantage in 5 of the first 6 races over Oscar last year, and then this year Oscar's had the advantage over Lando in 5 of the 6 races. So I don't know if that necessarily runs.
No, the only way
The
I'd
same
look
way.
at it is obviously the McLaren wasn't technically a race win at the start of last season.
But it was.
At that point,
It was when it came to Miami. At this point last year, it was.
Yeah,
So
I was
if
going to
we-
say I think by China they were in a point where they could win races.
yeah, which
It
was
wasn't
around
like the
5
previous
laps.
season where it took them half a season. It only took them a few races to get it back up
Like
to speed.
me.
I mean, if you remember, the Ferraris were the main threat to Max in the first 3 or 4 races last year. It wasn't McLaren.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh.
But my point is more that head to head in the team,
yeah.
Lando had the advantage over Oscar in 5 of the first 6 races last year, in qualifying and in the race.
I don't think that's the case, and that's not the case this year.
No, it's the other way round. It's
Mm.
actually genuinely the other way round. Oscar is the fastest qualifier of the season on average so far already, and Verstappen is second, not by much, but he's second. Lando is third.
I mean, the other way to look at it, and Lando hasn't finished outside the top 4. in a race
Sure.
so far. The last lowest was Saudi, whereas that Australia mix up for Oscar may come back and bite him a little bit
Not
later
really.
on in the season.
I don't think so.
We will
I
soon
mean, the
find
guy's
out.
just won 3 races in a row, and he's
He's
won
the
4 of the
fir-
last 5.
He's the first McLaren driver since Mika Hakkinen to win back-to-back races.
Yeah,
Like
I don't really like
and-
that stat because Mika's first
yeah,
two in
yeah,
that
he
run
won it. He
were
won it in '96. I
gifted.
know, and also he won in '97.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
it was
Yeah, and he
47.
got. It's because he got gifted the last one of '97 as well.
And he got gifted the first one in '98.
Well,
But only because he fucked up and the team then reversed the drivers.
Yeah.
It wasn't because he didn't
I know
deserve
that,
it.
and also didn't Coulthard and Hakkinen have that agreement of whoever got to the first
Yeah.
one the first
If
one?
you've got an agreement and you ain't David Coulthard, you would have gone and won that race. You would
I
have.
mean, that's the only thing David Coulthard would have won. Let's be honest. Second.
I mean, it was an interview I actually watched the other day with David Coulthard where he said, all these drivers who fly together now to races, him and Mika would be in the same airport, arrive at the same airport at the
And
same
get on
time.
different
There'd be
planes.
2 different planes. They wouldn't. They looked like best of buddies, but during that time at McLaren, they were not, and they just had a professional working relationship.
I was going to say they were ones that got on okay as well.
Yeah, I don't buy that too much, considering he literally gifted Mika 2 wins in a row while they had the most dominant car in Formula One, and went, off you go, have another win, But anyway, we shall move on from McLaren dominance.
One won 2 world titles, and the other one was just shit.
Well, that was the problem. It took him until was his plane crash in '99 or 2000 when he raced the Spanish Grand Prix with broken ribs after the 2 pilots sadly lost their life. And Coulthard said that was the point where he went, hang on, I've got to take everything I've got here instead of having things for granted. And I think he found things for granted back in sort of 97, 98 because he went, oh, well, we've got the quickest car, our wins plenty. And I think he won once that season, San Marino. Yeah, something like that. So you can have the most dominant car and not win races.
Anyway,
yeah.
anyway, I just want to finish up. if the McLaren is like a fairly dominant, I doubt it's going to be to this level when we get to Europe. But if it's like the quickest car in Imola, Lando has to win in Imola for any sort of like respite, for some sort of confidence thing, for anything. Lando has to win in Imola.
Yeah, I think he has to finish ahead of Oscar for sure. He needs to stop this momentum. I know that a few people mentioned momentum to him over the weekend, and he said he didn't believe in momentum. But I think you have to in Formula One. It's been shown so often to be a momentum-based sport that when you get on a roll, it's very hard to stop some of these drivers, and I think Oscar is one of those that is so robotic in the way that he delivers performance after performance after performance that actually you are going to need to break that and give him something to think about. And I don't even think one race does that. I think you need to go out there and, if Lando wins the next 3, game on, right? Then it really is game on, because then I think he'll be back. I don't think he'll care about all the naysayers like us talking shit about him, and I think he'll actually give Oscar something to think about as well if he can win the next 3 in a row. So I don't necessarily think he has to win the next one. I think he has to put a marker down now against Oscar, because that's what Oscar's done to him.
And sorry, just to finally add, do you know, even if it gets to the point that he has, because I still think there's still plenty of time in the season, but with the wheel-to-wheel racing with Max, do you know if he has to break his wing or they have to go off-road?
Yeah, I think they have to have a crash. I really do.
Yeah. If to make a point, if he's got a crash into Max Verstappen to prove a point, to prove I'm not moving anywhere, so be it.
It's exactly how Lewis did it. I mean, I know that brings up the Max fanboys and the annoyance of what happened in Britain, but the point is that Lewis was saying, no fucking more. I've given you room. I've given you space in the past, and you don't reply back with it. So the next time we go together into a corner and you don't want to back out, I'm not fucking backing out either. And if that means you go into the wall or I go into the wall, then so be it. And that's what he did And obviously it caused Max to go to hospital, which is not what we want. But then we also had Monza as well.
Yeah,
and Monza would not have happened had Britain not have happened. Because, again, Lewis is like, you're not going to intimidate me. You're not going to put that on me. If you want to put yourself in a position where we're going to have an accident, guess what's happening? We're having an accident.
Also,
and then once Max knew that, guess what? He didn't do it again.
I also think I'd like Monza.
I'm not advocating, by the way, for Lando to crash into Max.
No,
what I'm saying is that if they end up in a position where they are side by side and Max runs him off the road, instead of Lando doing what he did here at the weekend and moving out or backing out of it, he must stay in there. And if they come together as a result, Max then knows from then on he ain't putting up with that shit anymore.
That's what we're both advocating for. Neither one of us are going out and saying out and crash
absolutely
into
not.
Right, but just you have to stand your ground now. And I wasn't even thinking of Silverstone. I was genuinely thinking of Monza, where Max should have backed out for all intents and purposes because he was.
But that whole season started in San Marino.
Yeah.
The first one that they had was San Marino.
The first corner,
and Lewis backed out of it. Yeah. Lewis backed out and he was like, well, do I throw my entire race away with this first? No, I'll play the long game and see if I can get some points and get him back. And that was the first marker. And he said to himself, and he's made this point many times in interview, that was the first time he was like, okay, that's how it's going to be. Well, okay, then I'll play that game too then. And Britain was the first time it really came up again, where they were like, okay, here it is again. Your choice. He gave him the choice. Like, don't do it. Could have backed out, could have played the long game like Lewis did in Sandburg, but he wouldn't do it. And it works both ways. Like, Max put that on Lewis, so Lewis now knows as well, right? That's fair game. But what it didn't do was Lewis was determined it was not going to intimidate him, and I think Lando needs to do the same thing.
Another driver who found out that how to lead a Grand Prix this weekend, Kimi Antonelli, took the pole for the sprint, not the youngest sprint as Paul said earlier, but the youngest pole position in any kind of format, as they said. Anyway, they have to twist it somehow. But Kimi managed to put it on pole. Didn't have the best of races because obviously straight into turn one he got maxed. And then we went on to a messy sprint race basically for himself that culminated in a couple of points after the disqualifications and penalties had been applied. And then only a sixth place in the Grand Prix, whereas George Russell, fourth in the sprint, third in the race. It's that just sort of... I mean, Russell didn't have a great weekend. He was moaning about the car constantly. But Wajid, he managed to do what we've been on about for the last few years, that he needs to just take the team. We're not having the greatest weekend in terms of our speed in our car. Obviously, Kimi was pretty quick. But George just went, right, let's get the best result we can. And I remember talking to somebody during the Grand Prix and saying, look, he's doing a Fernando Alonso. He knows he can't catch the top two. He's half a second off the top two, but he's doing enough to beat Max.
Half a minute.
Yeah, half a minute. So he's 30 seconds ahead, behind the top two. He knows he won't beat them unless something happens. So let's look after the tyres and just make sure we beat Max.
Firstly, before I get onto that, what I want to say is, what do you now have to do in F1 to get a black flag or a drive-through penalty or a stop-go? Do you have to now commit vehicular like manslaughter to because like if crashing, I know it says unsafe release. Max has nothing to do with it. I'm not even blaming Max. But you know, if you are going to crash in the pit lane, the literal definition of an unsafe release, where Antonelli does a very, very incredible job to not lose control of the car and make that incident a lot worse than it could have been, and that only gets you 10 seconds. What the fuck are we? What the fuck are we doing? Because I said to David last week, and I said on the show, I've been going back watching the old races.
Yeah.
Lewis in '07, like he slightly overtook oh no, oh wait, sorry. He slightly overtook Vettel. He overtook Vettel, lost control slightly, went across the curbing in Manicourt, and he got a drive through. Max has literally driven into someone in the pit lane, and we got like, what the hell are we doing? Hey, or does it ruin race and stuff like that? Like, what's the point of results? Like
Yeah.
rules and integrity. Anyway, I needed to get that off my
No,
chest because
I
I
completely.
just thought it was absurd.
It is something I'm thinking of for future things.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
But
I'm just going to join in with you on that, Wadji, because I thought the Albon sprint penalty was absurd.
Yes.
When you're given a 5-second penalty in a shortened race, and it costs you 5th place and points, right? So it's cost you a lot
it was fourth,
Yeah.
for
wasn't it?
5.
It
I
was
think he
fourth,
lost 4
wasn't it?
places. Yeah.
No,
Um,
it cost him. Sorry, I mean it cost him fourth position.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it
absolutely.
cost him
Yeah,
5
but
points.
it lost him the whole of those points.
Oh yeah.
Um,
That's all.
And he did that because, quote, he broke a rule, or sorry, a race director's ruling, so not even a proper rule or regulation, about speed under the safety car. And what did he do? He did it because he was slowing down for safety reasons. Well, okay. And so you've given him a penalty which loses him points, but you've given Max Verstappen a 10-second penalty for crashing into another car. I don't understand the position between the two. Like, the balance of scales are all whack out. I don't get them at all. We keep calling for the same thing. We keep calling for common sense. We keep asking for the stewards to be clearer with things. But I will also say this, right? Because it's not Max's fault, and therefore it shouldn't impact his race and his finishing position and his times. I think you fine them or you do something differently. I think you penalise the team because it's a team error. It's a team process error, right? So you fine them with less CFD time or less wind tunnel time. That'll fucking help, won't it? Because then they'll stop fucking around. They'll stop making these stupid process errors. Because at the moment, they don't seem to care. They're like, 5 seconds here, 10 seconds there, 10 grand fine, whatever. As soon as it starts hurting them in the cost cap budget or in the wind tunnel or the CFD, then they'll start caring. That's where I think these fines and penalties should be aimed at, when it's a team issue. When it's a driver issue, like, you've driven into someone because you took them off the right, well, then that's on you. You lose whatever you want out of the race. But when it's a team process issue, the lights didn't work, they sent you out the wrong time, you've crashed into another driver because the lollipop man let you go or the lights said go, your wheels fallen off in the pit. All of those are process issues. Stop fining the driver, stop penalising the driver. They've already been penalised by having damage or losing a wheel or having another pit stop like Kimi had to. They've already been damaged enough. Fine the team in CFD time, in cost cap money or whatever it is, because that you can only stop them doing these things if you actually take action on them that hurts them.
I don't know. I totally agree with you. My point was is just like these penalties are just the way they're getting implemented is ridiculous.
Yeah, they're really poor. I agree.
Yeah. But onto Mercedes, George Russell, he's always struggling in Miami. Like, he's just never found grip in Miami. And that's the irony of it all. And was he very, very lucky with the safety car or virtual safety car even? Absolutely.
Sure.
But you make your own luck. And
well, he seems to have been very lucky all season, doesn't he, this year?
Yeah, he does. And
amazing, really.
He got it. He timed it perfectly, but he still stayed ahead of Max. Max could never get into his DRS. Yes, there was the tire offset, but he could never get in Max's DRS. He could never get close enough. And for all intents and purposes, from the second part of the race, he fully deserved that third place. And Antonelli, you know what? Fair play. Fair play. Like, I think he was 600th off pole in the actual Grand Prix. He got it on pole for the sprint. All right, it's just naivety for the. I'll be honest, it's just naivety. Like, he's now, yes, he's raced and he's generational and all that, but he's also on a very, very steep learning curve. He can take Miami as a massive learning curve and a learning experience. And he came out and said after the Sprint Grand Prix, if that's how we're racing, cool. So now he knows for next
Yeah,
time.
it definitely put a marker down for him, didn't it?
Yeah, and
He'll
I don't
learn.
know. I don't know what happened to the second part of the race when it comes to his speed and stuff like that. He couldn't get Albon, and to be honest, I'm sure we'll get into the Italian job and us three being on the pit wall for Ferrari. Clearly, if it
Yeah.
wasn't for that, he more than likely gets
Mm.
caught. He more than
I've
likely
had
gets caught.
I've had my cup of tea. I now qualify as a Ferrari strategist.
He more than likely gets caught by the Ferraris anyway. But do you know what? The Mercedes have literally done what they haven't done in years, and they've done what Red Bull used to do, which is they are maximizing where they can and as much as they can whenever someone makes a mistake or there's an advantage to be taken. And fair play to them. Let's see what happens when the European portion comes and upgrades and stuff like that. But they've taken maximum advantage in the first quarter of the season.
Yeah, and Paul, you've
Yeah.
said about me quite often. You've said, why didn't we rave about him in Australia and all of this? But this weekend was the first weekend where I went, okay, yes, this is a pace I was expecting from him.
But on the other hand, David, have I not been saying on every podcast we've done so far this year, just wait and see. Like, it will happen. He will, and it will be a gradual thing. And I look back and we look at the evidence now, right? He's 7/10 off George in round one in qualifying. Then he's 5/10 off. Then he's 3/10 off. Then he's 2/10 off. Then he's a tenth off. And I did say on the last podcast, it won't be long before he'll start out qualifying George. Hello, we've already reached it in Miami. And it won't be long before he is on the podium, and it won't be long before we see him win a race. It will be this year. And he has that kind of trajectory. I've seen it in previous Formula. I've seen it in when he was go-karting. I've seen it in iRacing. I've seen it wherever he's raced. I've seen his ability to improve and learn what needs to be logged in his brain to be able to make him go quicker, right? He seems to have this incredible knack of being able to do that in whatever he drives. And it's coming true in F1. I see his season very similar to how Lewis's season went in 2007 for his first season. If you look at their comparison, it's very interesting, actually. Maybe not in finishing positions, obviously, because Lewis had a much more dominant car that season, but just in terms of comparison to teammate, like, he starts off in Australia, okay, he's behind his teammate, but he's not far away, okay. He qualifies second a couple of times, he finishes on the podium 3 or 4 times, then all of a sudden he's now finishing second, and he's out-qualified his teammate a couple of times. And by the time they get to Canada, not only is he now out-qualifying Alonso, he now wins his first race. So it's taken 7 races, and he's gone from half a second back from Alonso to out-qualifying Alonso and winning a race. And Antonelli's progress against George Russell, who we've already agreed is arguably, alongside Piastri, the best driver of the season so far. Antonelli is getting there, and honestly, look at how long it took Piastri to get on top of Norris. Yeah. It's taken him 2.5 years in the same car, and Antonelli is not taking anywhere near as long. Like, can people just stop giving him such a hard time? I think the problem is, of course, he stepped into big shoes. He was never going to replace Lewis Hamilton. It's impossible to do that. But he is his own man. I've been saying this all along. And I'm pleased that people are finally waking up to him. But it's just like, how did you not see this in the previous races? This progress has not just happened overnight. He didn't just suddenly turn up in Miami and go, I'm quick now. I think also, there was I heard a really key phrase from Toto Wolff, which was, we've let him off the leash this weekend. Now, I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm going to guess and speculate. I think what it means is, they've said to him in the first 5 races, keep your head down, keep out of trouble, don't take any risks, don't go for crazy overtaking manoeuvres, learn from George, look at the stuff, learn from your engineer, work with your engineer, build relationships with your team, do all of the right things, because eventually it will allow you to get to a point where we can just let you do what you want to do. And I think this weekend was that weekend. When they say we've let him off the leash, it meant we've just let Kimmy be Kimmy this weekend. We've stopped mollycoddling him. We've stopped asking him to learn and be quiet and careful and considerate. We've just said, look, fuck it. Doesn't matter how many times you crash the car this weekend. Fucking go as fast as you can. And that's the first week they did it. And look what the results were. He nearly took 2 poles. And okay, yes, he needs more consistency in the race, and he knows that, and he needs better tyre management. Yes, of course he does. And yes, he needs to look at the telemetry more, and he needs to study what George has done well and what he's done better than George to work out why. And he needs to work on setup a bit. All of these things will come, right? It's taken Piastri 2.5 years. Let's just give the kid a break.
And for all intents and purposes, they say like all they do is talk about Antonelli's work ethic. All they say is all he's doing is studying, revising, looking.
I haven't seen him on iRacing all year.
So,
Fair point. I mean, I'll always say that I don't think Monza, like Toto Wolff, quite often, has been bigging him up and everything all last season. This season, he hasn't really been doing that because at Monza, it was almost like a Christian Horner, let's get the printout to a press conference moment because he was like, yes, but he was 20 miles an hour quicker in this corner. Yes, that's why he crashed. It's that kind of
Yeah, because when you forget to brake properly at the right time, you generally are quicker.
And Toto just needed to... And he's done that, and luckily, I mean, I did have the worry this season that Antonelli was going to come in, and he'd be like, yeah, look, he's the next generation, he's brilliant, but he keeps lobbing it in the wall. So far, he hasn't been, and that's a good thing, I think, for him.
Yeah, he's taken the pressure off him, if anything, which has been great.
Yeah. We'll move on from Mercedes now to Red Bull, obviously very, very quickly, because they weren't really around this weekend. They took the pole position, ironically, but they just didn't have the outright pace, especially in the race. So, damage limitation for Max, I'd say so, except for obviously the side of Antonelli's car.
Well, I wouldn't say so because he scored nothing. He scored nothing in the sprint, and then obviously no fault of his own. And then in the Grand Prix, he couldn't get past. He couldn't get past Russell. He couldn't drive past Russell. He couldn't get anywhere near past Russell. I don't think that's damage limitation. What your main two rivals in the championship literally take 1 and 2 in both the races, and you walk out with 12 points. That's not damage limitation at all. If anything, probably sort of solidifies this it's probably just solidifying more and more that this is a inter team battle for this world championship. I mean, he's doing what he can. If anything, I think this season more than any season is the season where people, if they've ever had any doubts about Max Verstappen, I just shut their head. Now, if you still have doubts, you're just a total arsehole and total hater.
You're a troll at this point, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay, see ya.
given the way he's driven, how he is driven the wheels off that thing. But I also think unless the flexi wing change is going to bring such a catastrophic change to the race order, I think
red herring.
I think this now more than anything probably confirms it's an inter-team battle for the world championship.
And Paul, obviously we had the change with Tsunoda coming in for Lawson. We have already joked about in our predictions. We both all had Lawson inside the top 8 of the championship, and I had him 7th, 2 places behind Verstappen.
Yeah.
And I look silly now. But then we'll go through them afterwards. But Tsunoda picked up 3 points, again, very luckily, because of the time penalties coming in the sprint.
Yeah.
Picked up a point in the race because of time penalties. Is it? Well, he had his own time penalty, didn't he? His 5-second penalty.
Okay, so I've got a fun stat. I've got a fun stat for you, because although you're looking at the positions, and that's the right thing to do, I'm not saying it isn't, and you're also looking at the fact that he only picked up 3 points. If we accept, and I don't know if I'm going to get this acceptance from both of you, but I'm going to try this with you. If we accept that Red Bull was not the fastest car at the weekend, or the second fastest, or even the third fastest, and may not even have been the 4th fastest car of the weekend.
No, I'll give you third.
Okay,
I'm not going to
Okay.
fourth. I'm not going
So
fourth or fifth. Sorry.
so if we say the third fastest car, that means the mean average of where we should expect Sonoda and Max to finish is fifth and sixth. Okay.
Yep.
If we extend that out to fifth to eighth, then actually Sonoda's not done too bad because he finished in 10th, right? So there's the positional argument. However, I'm going to give you one more that's even more amazing. You won't even believe this stat. Yuki Tsunoda finished 35 seconds behind Max on the road without a safety car, okay? So 35 seconds on the road of pure pace, which is half a second slower than Max, which is still not great, but it's the closest anyone has finished to Max in 26 races.
And also, it wasn't Max on the front row, and Sonoda was like,
Of course, absolutely, first and 10th, I get that, but at the same time, all I'm saying is he was brought in to be closer to Max. And is he closer to Max than anyone else has been in the last year? Yeah, he is. Is it great? No. Of course it's not, and it's not where Red Bull want him to be either, but he has proved over the 3 races that he's raced that he's gotten closer. He was 1.1 seconds on average slower than Max in race 1, which was still closer than Lawson had been all season.
Yeah.
He was 0.7 seconds back in the last race, and now he's 0.5 seconds. It's trending the right way at least, rather than Sergio Perez, which was getting worse by the race, and Lawson, which never got a chance to get off the ground. At least it's going in the right direction. In what I would say is, actually, and I still think it's the 4th quickest car. Not this weekend, I'll give you that this week, but I think overall, I think it's the 4th quickest car, and I think Max is just doing insane things. I am far from being a Max fanboy, by the way. If anyone watching this thinks, oh, these guys are just Max fanboy, I am not. I very much dislike Max Verstappen, very much do. But I will always appreciate an incredible driver. I didn't like Schumacher either, but I still think he was probably one of the greatest drivers to ever drive an F1 car. And Max Verstappen is showing us this season, for me, should be enjoyed. If you're a Max Verstappen fan, you're going to love it. If you're not a Max Verstappen fan, I think you're going to love it, because he is going to be so competitive in such a shit car that he is going to do things that we haven't seen in a generation. He's going to do things in this car that Schumacher did in 96 in that shitbox Ferrari. He's going to do things that we saw only Ayrton Senna could do in a Ford-powered McLaren in 1993. This guy is going to do things this year which we will not believe and we will not appreciate for another 20 years from now. But trust me, enjoy it this season, because you are going to see some incredible things in what I believe is the 4th best car on the grid.
Go on, Roger.
So, firstly, I don't think it's the 4th best car on the grid. I think how bad the car is has been massively overstated, given where they have been over the last couple of years. But I didn't want. But that wasn't my point. My point was actually to defend Tsunoda a bit, which is, the sprint. All right, cool. He made a mistake. Him not getting a second run. That's not his fault. That was totally on Red Bull for mistiming that. And he's jumped in the car, and a car that ignorant racist Helmut Marko didn't think he was good enough. Again, oh look, Helmut Marko wrong again. Who'd have thought? It's almost like he can't. It's almost like he can't see driving talent. Who'd have thought? He's had no preseason. He's got thrown into the car, and I'm with Paul. Bit by bit by bit, he's getting closer. He's getting closer and closer and closer. Give him more time in the car. I'm not saying he's going to be driving past Mark or anything like that, but he'll be within
2 to 3 tenths. I reckon exactly where he'll end up.
Yeah,
I'm totally in agreement with you.
Yeah, and
unfortunately, in this year, that means he could be 5th on the grid, or he could be 12th.
Yeah,
because the cars are so tight. Unfortunately,
if you give him 2 to 3 tenths in 2022, 2023, he's second, third. He's second.
Yeah, exactly.
Third,
he'd be right behind Max on the grid every race.
Yeah, and he's probably, and like if Max has an engine penalty or something like that, he's probably winning a race. Winning a race.
I agree. Yeah.
Because this season,
we live in really weird times when it comes to how close F1 is. Right?
Yeah, just unfortunately this year, given the circumstances,
couldn't agree more, mate.
I'm just going to throw this one at Paul. Literally a one-word answer. Who's the 3rd quickest car then?
Ferrari. I know you won't believe that because you've only seen it this weekend, but ignore this weekend. Over the period of this year so far, if you average all of the times in qualifying, which is the easiest way of determining speed of the car, Ferrari's the third fastest car, Red Bull's fourth.
And that is a one-word answer from Paul.
I gave you a one-word answer. I said Ferrari.
I'll leave that for everybody else to sort of think about. And actually, at that point, we will get on to Ferrari and their weekend that they had a very interesting weekend, shall we say. So get your cup of teas ready. In the sprint, Lewis, terrible on the inters. Stroke of genius in terms of whoever it was that called the slicks on that.
He called it.
I will say one thing. I was calling for it 2 laps before that because you could see Lewis was struggling, so why not?
Yeah.
If he'd done that, maybe he would have gone and won the race. Who knows?
He probably does, in fairness.
Yeah.
Still a genius call, though.
And I would love to know the genius call of people putting mediums on in them conditions. It's like you've got a pair of softs from qualifying. They'll be better anyway. We're not going to overheat. Anyway, moving on with Ferrari. Obviously,
We are checking.
We had Charles Leclerc not even starting the sprint race. Qualifying, only managing 8th and 12th. And then in the race, moving up to 7th and 8th. And literally arguing over who was going to be 7th or 8th. And I don't get it. I mean, it took them 3 laps. Sorry, I'm going to have my rant now. 3 laps it took them to decide whether to let Lewis Hamilton through. So overheated his medium tyres. Then wondered why he wasn't pulling away because all of a sudden Leclerc had okay tyres and DRS.
Yep.
And then Leclerc's going, right, I can see that we're catching the Williams now. Let's catch him. And then they went, let's swap it back. And it's like, just swap it back on the last lap. I'm sorry, Ferrari. We used to have a meme of old Ferrari, didn't we, Wadged?
Guess what's back?
Christ. And Lewis was just almost comic genius on the radio. Especially when he fell behind Leclerc.
Yeah, the reply about the science comment is absolutely amazing.
1.6
I literally spat my tea out.
Shall I let him pass myself?
Yes.
You know,
I literally spat my tea out.
There is nothing better than a bit of British sarcasm, though, let's be honest.
And then I thought it was quite harsh afterwards. They were all like, oh, you were very rude and you're very angry on the radio. And he was like, oh, I didn't think I was rude or angry. I was sarcastic, but I wasn't rude or angry.
But the worst part of it for me was Ferrari couldn't see that they'd gone from 6 seconds behind Antonelli, I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah. To 2. And then they swapped it back.
Yeah.
Lewis just got the tyres under control.
And the irony being, when they swapped it back, they lost a second.
They lost a second, and Leclerc couldn't catch it back up. And Charles had, I think Charles hadn't been told all the information before the swap.
No, so this is what I was going to bring up, though. I think this is amazing, right? Because this gives you a little bit of a more, if you weren't already convinced by the mounting of evidence that we've got on Ferrari strategy, this one should absolutely confirm it. When they said to Lewis, when they said to Charles, we're going to swap the places back, and we're going to do it in turn 11, they hadn't actually asked Lewis at that point.
So
they told Charles they were going to swap them back and where they were going to do it at turn 11, and they hadn't asked Lewis at that point whether he wanted to swap it back.
And the best thing is, before the initial swap, when Lewis is on the radio, they hadn't even bothered mentioning it to Charles once. So Lewis is in the radio thinking Charles is saying no.
Charles is refusing. He hadn't even been told.
Charles has no idea. As soon as he got told,
5 laps, by the way, it wasn't 3 laps; it was 5. From the moment that he pulled up behind,
out of the way.
5 laps. It took 2 laps for Lewis to say, "Guys, what are we doing here? Are we gonna?" I'm on the soft. I thought I would have been through, and then Ferrari went, okay, we'll discuss it, okay. And then a lap later, he's like, guys, seriously, am I just supposed to sit here for the whole race or what? What are we doing? And that's now 3 laps, okay. The 4th lap was Okay, well, we're discussing it and we're going to talk, and he's like, "Guy, well, can you just get
Have
on
a
with
cup
it,
of tea
or
while
what are
you're
you
at
doing, having a cup of tea while you're at it?" And that's 4 laps, and then the 5th lap, they actually then did the actual swap over. So it took 5 laps out of his tyres, which is basically that's
The
his
advantage.
time there and then. That's his advantage. He's got 5 or 6 laps on those tyres, not burning them up in someone else's dirty air, which happens to be his teammate. It's insane.
The irony being that everyone at home is going, all right,
Yeah,
they're gonna
yeah,
stop. They're gonna
yeah.
stop. Let him see what because what happens if he can't catch Antonelli and pass Antonelli
Well, they
on
put
the
him
last
back.
lap?
Yeah,
On the
just
last lap,
change it back, of course.
you swap him back, right?
Yeah, the whole thing was insane. It really was.
And I mean, I think the only positive to sort of take away if you're a Ferrari fan this weekend, or in my case a Lewis fan, is this is the first weekend where I think he was on par slash slightly quicker than Leclerc for the weekend.
I think he was ahead of him in China. He just got unlucky in China more than anything else. I mean, obviously the sprint race and then qualifying, he was ahead of Charles in both.
Okay,
So
all right, so no, sorry. Let me paraphrase. It feels like the first weekend where he has he came out of Jeddah and goes, I have no idea what's going on. This is the first time it comes out, and he seems like he has a small relative idea of like some relative standard of driving of the car. Like he can extract some bits out of it. So there seems like there's some progression, but fucking hell, Ferrari were nowhere all weekend. Like it
no.
was.
Well, I think he's put a marker down with them this weekend because he's been quite gentle with them. He's been quite politically correct, I think, on the radio at times. This weekend was the first one where he was like, "Okay, guys, I'm not putting up with any more of this shit. Like, we need to get our shit together. Otherwise, I'm fucking out of here."
But I also think he was very selective with it. He's been very kind and gentle up until the boss showed up this weekend.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
He knew
Yeah, as soon as
exactly
the boss was in the back of the garage this week, I said the same thing. As soon as I saw Elkin in the garage, I was like, okay, shit's going to hit the fan this weekend because Lewis won't put up with it now.
I don't.
Sorry, David. I'm just gonna. But it's good. Like this is what they wanted. This is what
absolutely.
They got.
That's what they signed up for. Fred knew exactly what he was getting when he signed him. He knew exactly what he was doing,
right, and
exactly what he was going to get. So,
and this is the push Ferrari have wanted and have probably needed since
I agree.
Not since Alonso, because Alonso was always in it for himself, but someone because Charles.
I know what you mean, though. Yeah,
but Charles is too nicey. Sainz didn't.
But I don't even think it's nicey. I think it's Charles doesn't have the experience to know what it needs to win a world championship.
Yeah, and
he doesn't know. In terms of the driving or the car setup, he doesn't know what the organisation needs to look like. He doesn't know what the operations need to look like. He doesn't know what the processes need to look like. Lewis knows all this stuff. He's done it twice. He's done it at Mercedes and he did it at McLaren. He made literally moulded those teams around it. Great champions do that. Michael Schumacher did it. Ayrton Senna did it. Alain Prost did it. Niki Lauda did it. Like, the great champions know how to mould a whole team around them. Charles doesn't know how to do that. Not because of any... Yeah, Verstappen, obviously. It's not that Charles is bad. It's just that he doesn't know how to do that. He's never had the experience of it. So how is he supposed to learn? Whereas Lewis has done it twice before.
With Charles, does kind of feel like he owes Ferrari something because Ferrari have been.
Oh, I think they owe him something too, though.
Yeah, but he's
been incredibly loyal. He's had opportunities to get a McLaren. He's had opportunities to get a Mercedes, and he's turned them all down. He stayed at Ferrari in the hope that he could be a Ferrari world champ. They owe him too.
But he's felt like because of the Ferrari Academy and bringing him through, he probably doesn't feel like he can put his foot down. Whereas Lewis,
no. See, that's the problem.
That's why they need a Hamilton.
This is where
That's why they went for Vettel.
This is where you and I have always differed, which is where I've gone. In order to be a world champion, you have to be ruthless. The reason I come on here week after week, chest puffed out and say, Lewis and Max are still, to me, on their day, 1A and 1B, is because they have that extra 2 to 3% of utter mental ruthlessness. Right, which when push comes to shove, will send them over the top.
Yeah.
Charles has to learn that under Lewis now. It is now or never. We're seeing that. We're seeing that Lando at this moment in time doesn't have it, hasn't got it, not learning it. Cool. I think Piastri, like sort of Paul alluded to,
Piastri doesn't even need it.
he does. He doesn't need it. But even Piastri didn't need it. He has a support network with his manager who has been in a situation where a guy had control of the team. He was
Yeah.
the second man in the world. He was the second man in the world
Yeah,
championship.
he won't let it happen again. That's for sure.
He will not. He will not let it. He will not let it happen again. Charles has to learn it. And especially Ferrari's going to be very 50-50 to both these guys. They're not going to piss off Lewis. They're not going to piss off Charles. Now is the best time to learn it if you're ever going to learn it.
Great.
New sponsor of the podcast. No, the thing is with Lewis, I think I don't think it's completely to do with the big boss turning up, because Miami is always going to turn up. I think it's a lot to do with. Sorry, I think I've just opened a can down our listeners' ears. But Lewis has come in and he says, right, I'm going to watch how Ferrari work. I'm not going to be really I'll drop hints at where I think what we can do, etc. But we've got to be careful with this. And I think that he's now gone, right, I've seen everything I need to see. Now we start being ruthless. Now we start making the changes we need. And if that means changes in personnel, then they'll get round to that. But he's now got the bit where he can say something to his engineer and his engineer will understand him. He has that relationship already back under, especially with he's also got his trainer back with him as well. But I think he's just all there. His dad's in the pit garage a lot more as well now with this Ferrari journey. So I think this is where we start to see Lewis go, look, this is what we did at Mercedes. This is what we did at McLaren. This is what you need to start doing. You don't take everything with you to different teams, but there's times where you just have certain things have to be done. Pit strategy being right is one of them. And wondering whether you should be fighting over who's seventh. And that's the one thing for me. Charles didn't get the information. I don't think Charles cares which car finishes 7th or 8th. Neither of them do. I think there are two drivers who will push the team forward. But because of this argument and all that, it just didn't. The information needs to be passed on a lot easier even if it's by Fred himself. The pit calls.
I disagree with you slightly. I think it does matter who finishes 7th and 8th to Charles, because I think every opportunity he gets to finish ahead of Lewis is important to him right now, because it sets a marker.
Possibly.
So I think it probably is important to Charles that he finishes ahead of Lewis. It won't be important to Lewis. It never has been. He doesn't care who he's shown that when he was with George. It doesn't make any difference unless he's fighting for a world title. He doesn't care if he finishes behind his teammate.
Oh, China's the only.
He did the same with Button. He did the same with Alonso, and he's done the same with other teammates. So he doesn't care if he finishes behind his teammate because he knows he's quicker overall when it comes to winning a race or winning a title. Charles, though, doesn't understand that bit yet.
I will say with Lewis, it was, he's not always been a fan of sprint races. Let's put it that way. He's never been really
good.
Now. He hadn't won one, but then this season it seems to matter because it's another stint in the car. Which
I don't think it means. No, I disagree again, David. I don't think it's that it matters to him more. I think it's just that he's somehow all the other teams aren't ready yet. Right? They're all focused on long runs and they wait until the Saturday. So in effect, what they end up with is a base default setup on the Friday morning seems to work for Ferrari, whereas all the other teams haven't found that yet. They're all working towards the Grand Prix. They're all just where the big, Zach Brown often says where the big points are made. Right? He doesn't really care about the sprints too much. Ferrari obviously do, and they're trying to maximise whatever they can get out of it. They seem quite good at setting the car up initially. What they don't seem very good at is developing the car through the weekend, like every other team does.
Yeah, it does seem to be. If they do develop things, they go.
They go the other way.
Wrong.
Yeah, it get worse.
China. Well, it'll be interesting to see, especially as I say, we've got Imola coming up.
Yeah,
that's obviously home ground from.
I mean, it's pretty much pretty much their first of like 3 home Grand Prix they're going to have this season.
I know they get quite a few, but Imola, close enough to Ferrari to be sort of a home Grand Prix. Monaco,
I mean, it was
Ferrari
literally
do.
was it literally not called the Dino Ferrari?
Yeah,
It is called the Enzo Edino Ferrari
So
track. Yes.
yeah.
yeah, it's
But the people
Ferrari.
who test there
It's
are
named
actually
after
AlphaTauri.
Enzo and Dino Ferrari.
Yeah. Monaco, where their car went really well last year, maybe that will help them this year because they're very draggy as a car. Maybe.
Yeah. Depends if it's
Um,
cool.
And then we got Spain, which, who knows about that because that's the last ever time we go to Barcelona. I don't think it's going to be because I think we'll end up still being there
Yeah,
instead of
unfortunately.
Madrid. But that is.
But
how
on the
we see-
positive side,
Go on.
we're going to Miami till 2041.
Yes, I'll be 50 when we have the last Miami contracted Grand Prix. Wow.
I love the fact that when David Croft announced that, he was like, "Oh, guys, the contract has been extended until 2041. That'll be fun, Martin, when we come back then, won't it? What we'll be talking about then?" And Martin's like, "Well, I'll be lucky if I'm alive." I mean, the guy will be 87 for crying out loud. I mean, it doesn't bear thinking about, really, for him, does it? He's like, I'm not thinking about 2041. I was born in 1959 for crying out loud. I mean, what a weird thing for Crofty to say. And also, to assume that he would still be commentating on Sky Sports in 2041, I thought was quite odd as well.
Yeah, well, I suppose you have to look at it that way the best you can.
I suppose.
We're going to try and breeze through quite a bit more, but first team, which I'm not going to say was under the radar, because certainly not, but first team that looked like they might be able to get a podium or nick a podium as they go along. Williams, great weekend. Albon, unfortunate to lose. Well, not even unfortunate to lose.
Very
just
unlucky.
Stupidly by the decision made, losing fourth place in the sprint. That would have been 5 points. Picks up 10, keeping Kimi Antonelli 7 seconds behind him. And Carlos having a bit of an up and down weekend, good qualifying, but finishes down in 9th in race. And he's come out and said there's lots of things this weekend which wasn't quite the way we should have done it, in terms of Albon attacking him and things like that. And I'm like, Albon got 5th and 4th on the road.
He was
right.
clearly
There's
quicker.
something
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't quite do, and hasn't quite done this season. We all expected him to be the quickest driver out of the whole team. And if you look at the standings now, we got Alex Albon in 8th, and Carlos Sainz is down in 13th with only 7 points when Albon's got 30. What are we thinking here? Is Sainz maybe almost driving too hard, thinking, well, I'm the better driver, I've come from Ferrari, this happens? Or has Albon stepped his game up?
I think
I don't think it's one thing, is it?
it's a mix of. I think it's the same thing Lewis is going through at Ferrari, which is Science has gone into a team where the guy is already established, set, knows how the team works, can extract everything out of the car, and Science is having a steep learning curve because he's never driven a Williams or a Mercedes engine in his entire time during an F1. So he's learning. So he's learning. That is literally all it. That's literally all it is. Because Science was, and to be honest, the timing of the safety car, Science was really unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because he would have beaten both Ferraris, if that was the case. So I don't think there's anything to worry about. Albon extracted everything they could out of the Williams this week, out of the Williams this weekend. Science was just unfortunate because both Williams would have been ahead of, both Williams would have beaten the Ferrari this weekend. Sorry, Paul. Paul.
No, it's all right. I agree. I think it is a mixture of things. I don't think it's one single thing. I think it's, as Wajid already pointed out, it's new team, new processes, new wheel, new surroundings, new personnel, new engine. All of this is new to Carlos, and we know now that these modern F1 cars are. It's not like you can just jump out of one and jump into another and they feel the same or similar how they used to. These 2022 and forward to now cars are very different animals in different teams, and they work in different ways. We've seen Daniel Ricciardo struggle when he's changed teams, and he was perfectly fine when we had the old style cars. We've seen Lewis Hamilton struggle when he changed teams. We've seen Sebastian Vettel struggle when he changed it. Like, we've seen some great drivers struggle when they've moved teams. So it can't just be, oh, they're getting on a bit or they're losing it or whatever. Like Alonso is the perfect example of a guy who can drive almost anything, right? And has done throughout his career. Not just in Formula 1, but other cars as well outside Formula 1, sports cars, Indy cars, whatever it is, and he's quick in everything. To watch him struggle when he changed teams also makes me think that it's this style of car, for whatever reason. They're all generating speed in different ways, whether it's through, one does it 60% through the floor, and another one does it through 30% through the floor, and another one does it 40% over the front wings, and another one does it 10% through the front wings. They're all so different that it just takes a long time to learn them. Also, you shouldn't underestimate how long it takes to learn engine mapping on these different engines. And as you rightly pointed out, Sainz has never driven a Mercedes-powered engine before. He's driven all the others, so he doesn't know. He doesn't know when you can put the throttle down or where the mapping is or what it does. And he's made some mistakes on that basis, right? Australia being a big one, albeit in tricky conditions. So, yes, it's all of those things. But getting back to Albon, I think actually I'm pleasantly surprised that Albon hasn't been used. I was one of those people that thought that Sainz would go in here and he would show Albon up and he would be 3 or 4 tenths quicker than Albon every session and in the race, and that it would finally make Albon look pretty average instead of world class as we've thought for the last 3 years, in a similar way that people worried about George Russell being world class until he went up against Lewis Hamilton, right? And I always said, actually, I think George Russell really is the real deal. And I wasn't sure about Alex Albon, even though the evidence in previously said George Russell thinks he's the real deal, Lando Norris thinks he's the real deal. Pretty much anyone that raced against Alex Albon will tell you that the hardest person they raced against in junior formula was Alex Albon. And he hasn't shown it in F1 yet, and he hasn't had a chance to show it in Williams. Now he gets the chance to show it against a world-class operator. Don't be telling me that Carlos Sainz has lost it, or he's too old now, or he's never going to be world champion, so it doesn't matter. Don't tell me those things, right? This guy, if we accept that Charles Leclerc is the fastest qualifier in F1, and I think we're pretty safe in saying that, even better than Max Verstappen in a single lap, and we know how good Charles is, and we look at how close Carlos Sainz was for 3 years with him, less than a tenth of a second on average in qualifying against Charles Leclerc, the fastest single lap player in the whole of F1. That was last season, and he won races in that Ferrari that didn't deserve to be won. Carlos Sainz is a world-class operator, and if Albon can match him, he's done incredibly well, let alone beating him in races and beating him in qualifying. So this says a lot to me about where Albon is. He actually is the real deal, I think. And maybe mentally, maybe he's not. Maybe he's got a great environment now with James Vowles and Williams, and that really helps him in a similar way to Lando's found that kind of home at McLaren. Maybe in Red Bull, maybe he would struggle again if he went back to Red Bull. Maybe Lando would struggle at Red Bull. They've got their right places. They found the right places to be, and I'm pleased that actually he is turned out to be the real. And I'm glad that I was wrong about that. So it turns out he is. And what I'm really looking forward to now is Carlos getting up to speed and both of them being super competitive, because there will be weekends where they are the third quickest car, and I can't wait for it. Honestly, it's going to be so cool.
It does seem to be that way with Albon. I completely agree. I think Sainz was going to come and blow him away, and it hasn't quite happened, which is great. Albon sitting there now, as I say, 30 points in the championship out of the 37 that Williams have got. And then the constructors looking really good. 17 points clear of Haas, who have been Jekyll and Hyde in terms of their pace, especially in qualifying. And then Aston Martin, who are pretty much the slowest guy in F1 right now, apart from Sauber. And they've got themselves 14 points. But
how many points did Williams get last year? 17. 17 all year.
Yeah. Well,
and Albon scored more than that in the first 2 races of this season.
It's what we've wanted from Williams. It's what we've wanted from Williams for a long time.
Yeah, I think when we did the preview show at the start of the year, what did I tell you?
You said that the guys at Williams have never been more confident about a car in the year.
Yeah, I go out with them every year when they come back from their F1 times. We go and have food and we chat, and we never talk about F1 because they hate it. This year I couldn't shut them up. Super excited. Like, the whole team is just so pumped up for what they've got. And I find it incredible. They're one of two teams that have basically kept the same chassis.
Yeah. It's a bit strange.
It's working for him.
It is working.
Well, I thought you were going to come up with your rookie of the year as Liam Lawson, to be fair. But anyway, that's a different thing on the predictions. Speaking of predictions, let's go through our predictions for this weekend.
Here we go.
Before everybody falls asleep.
This is the part of the show I like to call, look at these experts look like idiots.
Yeah, pretty much.
Speak
We need like a little...
Some of us are winning out here.
Yeah, we need a cutscene for that. So, with some cheesy music.
So
that was the current scores. Wadget on 3. It's not my five-a-side football formation. Even though it's 6 there. Right, let's get on to it. Qualifying.
Since David gave his predictions first last week, as he wasn't here, I will give David's predictions first. So, Mr. Red Eye had George Russell in 5th.
Mr. Red Eye's Paul.
Sorry.
Not Dave.
My
I was going to say, I was here. No, I'm on the other side, actually.
Yeah, all white people look the same to me.
Wow. More racism, please.
It's the only time in my life I've ever been able to say it.
We'll be back. We'll be back in a minute.
Oh my God, twins!
Right, into qualifying. The top 5 for people who don't know: Russell.
It's a good job we like him, innit?
4th, Antonelli third. Who said we like him? Antonelli 3rd. It's just a quota. Low 2nd, and Max in 1st. So go on, Wajid. What did I say?
So you had Gasly in 5th.
Don't ask.
You had Leclerc in 4th.
Okay.
You had Piastri 3rd. You had... Isn't that a point?
No.
No.
Oh, this is 4th one.
It's Kimi's 3rd.
Yeah. You had Verstappen 2nd. And you had London Norris in 1st. So out of 5, massive nil point. Mr. Red Eye had Russell in 5th.
Yep. Close.
Leclerc in
No,
4th.
not close. Russell was 5th.
Oh, he was 5th, yes. So, yeah. So 1 point.
Leclerc in 4th.
Yeah.
Norris,
not close.
Norris 3rd.
So close.
Piastri 2nd.
Not close.
And Verstappen 1st.
Oh, hello! 2 points in 1 weekend. Hello? Goes to the top of the leaderboard.
Not for long, because I also had Russell. Because I also had Russell in 5th.
Right. Okay.
I unfortunately had Verstappen in 4th.
Whoops.
I had Leclerc 3rd.
Right.
I had Norris 2nd.
Oh, so you reversed Piastri and Max.
Yeah, and I had Piastri 1st. So that also gives me 2 points. So much for your top. So much. For
Wait,
your
hold
top
on. Gives you 2 points for what?
Because I had Norris 2nd.
We're getting better at it.
Just to mention this, Wadget, because my keyboard has decided to suddenly give up. Could you add the points on? It's at the bottom of the F1 tabs.
Yeah, that's fine. So we're currently
so we're at 5-3-2 now.
5-3-2.
Wow. Now it's looking more like a proper.
No, it is a formation.
Proper formation almost. Yeah.
Anyways, I'm gonna put names next to them as well, just to make it.
Oh, don't do that. Okay, so in the race, we obviously went for the top 5 again. Alex Albon was 5th, Verstappen was 4th, Russell was 3rd, Lando was 2nd, and Piastri 1st. Something which I've just noticed from that, which we hadn't mentioned, apart from 1-2 from McLaren, 4 different constructors in the top 5.
And not a single Ferrari.
Yeah. I was going to say, it was 5 out of 6, top 6, wasn't there?
So we're going to go to the predictions for the race.
This is so annoying for me, by the way. I'm so close to this. It's really annoying.
So for Paul,
he had Hamilton in 5th.
Ignore 4th and 5th.
This is top 5, but ignore.
I got him in the right order.
Leclerc in 4th.
Yeah.
Then he had Verstappen 3rd.
Close.
Piastri 2nd.
Close.
Norris 1st.
Close. Fuck.
Yeah, that's still 0.
I tell you what, Paul is one of them guys who would go to bingo and they'd call out 67, and he'd have 68, and he'd go, "Oh, so close." Yeah, there's only 99 other balls in there.
I was that guy.
Don't worry, I'll do it.
Mr. Magpie,
Yeah.
he had Gasly still finishing fifth.
What is it? What is it? Are you just going to have Gasly fifth every week until he actually does it? Is that the plan? Is there like a strategy or something?
No, I'll
You
put
had-
Colapinto fifth for him.
Yeah, you had Russell in fourth. You had Hamilton third. You had Norris in second,
Wow.
and you had Verstappen first.
Yeah,
Wow.
don't ask me about the Verstappen idea that he was going to win, but yes,
Don't-
I will have the extra point there to put me equal with Paul now. So
Yeah.
let's see what he put for
So
a race.
5-3-3. Yeah. No, I've done mine. Mine was shit.
Then yours, yeah.
Yeah.
I had if we ignore my fifth, fourth, and third, since this is what we're doing now. I had Verstappen in fifth. I had Leclerc fourth. I had Tsunoda third,
Jesus.
but I had Norris second, Piastri first.
Wow. 2 more. 4 points in one weekend. That must be a record, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That is
Yeah.
actually a record.
Yeah.
Over
Well,
the
that's
2
more than
years
you and I have
done
got
this.
for the whole season, David.
Yeah, but it is actually like more than we've ever predicted, right?
Yeah.
Ever.
So Wajid now moves on to 7 points, and we've both got 3.
I mean, that's pretty much the world
I'm
title.
not.
don't you?
I'm
That's
not.
pretty
I'm
much
not
the
sure. How many extra points do you get for predicting the world champion? Right though, because I think I'm okay with that. Right, it's an extra 10 points. Yeah.
I might be all right. Mathematically, I might be right. He's still got a chance.
Okay. I mean, you're right.
So-
Mathematically, he's not out of the running.
So is Fernando Alonso.
Nor is Lance Stroll.
Yeah, but Lance does have 20 more points than Alonso.
Yeah.
Nor is Jack doing at this moment in time either.
Yeah, well,
Mathematically, not in. Yeah, mathematically not out of the chance of winning. But then Logan Sargent isn't mathematically out of the chance of winning it either.
Neither us three.
6. I don't think we're going to get a call up.
Or my nan.
We've got 6 Grand Prix,
Yes.
30 predictions,
Yes.
and we have
13 right.
180 predictions.
Yeah, and we have 13
We
right.
have 13 right.
Yeah. So it's 0.73%. We're doing well.
Yeah. I mean, how many did we get this weekend between us all?
Oh, quite a lot this weekend, actually. 7, I think, this weekend.
Yeah.
7 out
yeah.
of 30. That is our best score.
That is our
so
best
far.
score. Like that's 28% this weekend we've managed. That's amazing. Considering our average is 0.73%.
Yeah. I was just thinking
28% is astounding. Like people are literally cashing their gyros in on that.
That means for the rest of the season. I think that.
Yeah, that's it now. Yeah, that's it. Like, forget it now.
I think that means up until Singapore. Up until Singapore, we're not getting another one, right?
Mate, no, we're fine. Singapore, I'm just going to go with Nelson Piquet Jr. We're done.
Well, the way Alpine are going this season, he might be in the seat. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Obviously, that wraps up our review of the Miami Grand Prix. We will be more excited for it next year because it won't be a fake marina. It will be a real one.
Yay!
But we are there until I'm 50. Next up, we've got a triple header, Emilia-Romagna, where we all try and say the full sponsorship and pronunciation of the Grand Prix. We've got Monaco, and we've got, as I say, the planned last visit to Barcelona for the Spanish Grand Prix. And that's a full triple header for everybody before we go off to Canada.
I was going to say, and in Canada, yeah.
Yeah, so thank you, Paul, for joining us and
Always a
giving
pleasure.
us 2 predictions correctly. Thank you, Wajid, for actually saving our bacon and making us look
Yeah, well done,
slightly
Wajid.
competent.
I mean,
4 predictions out of 10, amazing. 40% for Wajid, amazing.
Just don't back it. I learned don't bet against the McLarens in.
Yeah, just stop betting on Hamilton and you'll be fine.
Well, I think it's like the Grand National. Never bet on the grey.
Right.
Mine's going grey.
And with that,
Well, it could have been worse. I could have turned around and said the person with the most is the quota. That's,
I mean, I've always been a quota. That's why I've got so far ahead in my life. Anyway, with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll be.
Imagine trying not to get us banned.
Yeah, I think
Um,
we'll be back next week for the preview to the
Preview,
Emilia
yes.
Romagna. Hopefully, we'll be slightly more excited than we were this week or last week, even shall I say, where neither Dave or I wanted to be here. Beaster and everyone else in the comments and everyone else watching, thank you very much for joining us. Paul, as always, thank you very much for being here. You can find him on Twitch. And are you on Instagram and anything else?
No. Well, yeah, but not really.
He-
Just Twitch.
You can
He's
find him on
kind of
Twitch.
on it without being
Twitch
on
or
it.
come and abuse me in Discord. It's fine.
Yeah, where he will be still making special liveries from now till the end of time. You can find me either here or here on Instagram and YouTube and all that. And my YouTube video coming out soon from my trips in Mexico. And then, as always, you can find uh, the supreme leader of the channel here on the channel or on Twitch. And yeah, that's about it, really. So,
Yeah,
with all
just bear
that being
with
said,
me. I'm plugging my keyboard in so we can actually raid somebody. There we go. Actually plugged in now, so we could find somebody to raid on Twitch. Sorry, YouTube, you haven't got that kind of thing yet. So I think I know who we're going to raid. We're going to raid him because why not? Thank you to everybody who's been around tonight, and hopefully you'll join us for our new. I could copy and paste my questions to Red Eye. Yeah, I would do. It'd be easier. You might actually
I'm
get
on
an answer.
stream tomorrow morning from 10 a.m. Come and join me then and give me the questions, and I'll do it live. There you go.
Yeah, so we've got the stream on ahead. Follow Red Eye, follow myself, follow Wajid on Instagram with his travels and possibly YouTube soon, as he states. And we will have a new show coming up, which will be very interesting because I'm going to get all sorts of people on it. And if you ever liked BBC's Fighting Talk, well, you'll like this one. But for now, it is goodbye.